Sir Dan struck the ground with a heavy thud, earth scattering around him as the time machine's energy fizzled into silence. The impact rattled his bones, but he pushed himself upright, brushing soil from his armor. The world around him spun for a moment before settling into focus. Kaya was gone. No trace of her remained. Dan scanned the forest, but she was nowhere in sight. He realized that he had landed inside the clearing of a small, woodland hut. The air was still. A growl rumbled behind him. Dan turned as a monstrous hound, a massive snarling beast, with fur bristling like jagged thorns, lunged forward. Dan braced for a fight, but the beast stopped just short of him, sniffing the air. Recognition dawned in its posture. Its growl softened. It was Lopo, his dog from his living days, twisted by a strange nature of time warp, yet unmistakably the loyal companion he once knew. Footsteps approached. The living Sir Daniel stepped into the clearing, searching for his hound. He appeared younger, proud. He called softly for Lopo. The hound looked between its living master and a skeletal knight standing in the clearing. After a long moment, the creature pressed itself gently against the undead Dan, choosing the kinder version of its master it remembered across centuries. The living Dan lingered, confused. He attempted to dislodge a bat hanging from a nearby tree by tossing a rock upward. The stone missed entirely, bounced off the branch, and landed in the underbrush with a dull thud. He shrugged, retrieving his confidence as easily as he lost it. He then turned and walked back into the forest, unaware of the strange convergence of timelines unfolding behind him. Sir Dan watched him go, the monstrous yet loyal Lupo at his side. The forest fell quiet once the living Sir Daniel vanished into the trees. Above them, the bat that Dan had failed to strike earlier unfurled its wings and descended in a slow, circling glide. It was no creature. The bat, Karloff, settled onto Dan's shoulder. With a flick of its wings and a sharp tug on Dan's armor, it urged him forward. Lopo followed obediently as the small creature guided them deeper into the forest. The path twisted between ancient oaks and stones half swallowed by moss. At last, Karloff led them into a hollow where an immense figure awaited, shrouded in mist, ageless and carved from the very fabric of fate itself. The Oracle. Its presence seemed to bend the air around it, as though the world paused simply to make space. Without a word, the being revealed what Dan had not yet understood. The timeline had splintered. History was bleeding into itself. Zarok was no longer alone. An Egyptian sorceress stood at his side, Kiyante, queen of the Withering Sun. Her name fell into Dan's awareness like a hammer blow. Kaya had not been a lost princess seeking rescue. She had been a patient predator, using affection as a mask. Dan had been maneuvered expertly from the start. He had rescued her from confinement, delivered her into the modern age, and unknowingly handed her the time machine. Kiyante had returned to the past and aligned herself with Zarok, the one figure in history whose hunger for power and command of the dead could match her own. Together they wielded the Anubis Stone, an artifact capable of summoning legions of undead, far beyond anything Zarok had ever achieved alone. Their combined ambitions now stretched across centuries. The Oracle unveiled the worst of it. Kiyante would interfere directly with the past. The living Sir Dan would not die at the start of the Battle of Gallowmere. He would survive long enough to make catastrophic errors, weaken the militia, shattering the kingdom's defenses, and allowing Zarok's forces to overturn the fate that had once been sealed. A new timeline was forming, one where Zarok triumphed, one where Gallowmere fell, where Sir Daniel never rose as a hero at all. Dan felt the weight of history shift. The betrayal, the altered past, the reemergence of evil. It all converged upon him. The fate of the two eras now hung on his rattling shoulders. And once again the knight who had died a failure and risen a hero found himself standing at the heart of a fractured destiny. The Oracle's warning left Sir Daniel with only 3 weeks to alter the course of history. Before the doomed Battle of Gallowmere, the timeline was unraveling, threads twisting towards a future governed by Zarok and Kiyante. Dan, Lupo, and Karloff set off immediately, guided by fate towards allies hidden across distant lands. His first journey carried him across storm-tossed waters to a remote island shrouded in perpetual mist. There, amid the spiraling towers of sand and ancient stone, dwelled an eccentric genie, whose magic bent reality in unpredictable ways. Though Dan's presence startled the being at first, the genie soon realized the importance of his mission. Through trials of wit, endurance, and no small amount of chaos, Dan secured an alliance. With the one sorcerer power, capable of neutralizing Kayat's spells, the genie's magic would shield him from her influence when the final confrontation came. From there, the time-worn knight turned his attention to Mullocks Island, a place of rugged cliffs and subterranean passages. Within its caverns, the Mullocks, strange amphibious creatures, were being terrorized by a monstrous beast. Dan descended into the depths, confronting the abomination in the choking darkness. When the creature fell, the Mullocks surrounded him. In excitement, his victor earned not only their allegiance, but also the fervent worship they bestowed upon him, just as they had in the altered future. His path then led to the enchanted borders of the fairy kingdom, a realm of shimmering meadows and shifting colors beneath an ever-golden sky. The fairies, led by the stalwart Griff, were locked in a conflict with swarming hornets, whose relentless attacks threatened to overwhelm them. Dan fought alongside the fairies, steel and magic cutting through the buzzing ranks, until the skies were finally cleared. Grateful for his aid, the fairies pledged their support, strengthening the fragile coalition forming across the land. On Zarok's island, danger intensified. The dark sorcerer's stronghold loomed over volcanic ridges and treacherous paths. Within its shadows, Dan encountered the giant dwarves, an unusual people whose size belied their craftsmanship. Through shared struggle and unexpected kinship, they aided Dan in infiltrating Zarok's lair. Together they stole the coveted Anubis Stone, prying it from the grasp of the sorcerers who sought to wield it. With the artifact removed, Zarok and Kayat's forces were deprived of a crucial weapon. Dan's final journey before the battle carried him into the Silver Wood, where twilight lingered even during the brightest day. The Shrubbities, who dwelled there, were tormented by a spreading corruption, the dark Shrubbity curse, which twisted their forms and minds. Dan carved a path through the afflicted groves, dispersing the curse at its source and restoring the Shrubbities to their ancient, gentle state. In gratitude, they introduced him to the Woodland Witch, a guardian of the forest, whose arcane knowledge and protective enchantments would fortify Dan's growing resistance against the converging timelines. By the end of the 3 relentless weeks, Sir Daniel had unified genies, Mullocks, fairies, dwarves, and witches, an alliance stitched together across islands, kingdoms, and hidden enclaves. Dan turned towards the approaching Battle of Gallowmere, wielding allies and knowledge that had never existed in the original timeline, preparing to rewrite history before history rewrote him. As the final hours before the Battle of Gallowmere slipped away, the weight of destiny pressed heavily upon Sir Daniel. The alliances he had forged across distant lands had brought strength and hope, but none of it would matter unless the original flow of history was restored. The Oracle's vision was clear. The living Sir Dan had to fall in the opening moments of the battle, or the kingdom would be lost. And now, emboldened by Kayat's interference, the younger Dan was poised to survive and bring ruin to Gallowmere in the process. Resolute, the skeleton knight prepared for the task only he could carry out. In the quiet shadow of the militia encampment, Dan crept into Lord Kardok's tent, planted in a series of enchanted arrows among the supplies. These arrows, forged with the genie spell and woodland magic, would find their mark at the precise moment needed, ensuring the battle unfolded as it once had. But there remained one problem: the living Sir Dan. His survival would distort everything, and so beneath the moonlit sky, the undead knight brewed a body swap potion, a swirling, unstable concoction made from the shrubberite herbs, genie flame, Mullock tears, and the faintest shimmer of fairy kingdom dust. Its purpose was simple. When its magic settled, the exchange was complete. The cowardly, untested living Sir Daniel now stood in a skeletal form of his future self. And the true Sir Dan, the hero shaped by centuries of struggle, found himself restored to the flesh he once wore in life. Standing strong at the head of the Gallowmere forces, the dawn of battle arrived. Dan rode forth, armor gleaming, sword raised, not as the legend who had risen from his crypt, but as the man he had once been, the man he had always wished he could be. He led the charge with unwavering courage. He fought with all the might he carried across lifetimes, and when the enchanted arrows struck their targets, when the tide turned to Gallowmere's favor, Sir Daniel gave his life to secure the victory that history had written for him. As he fell, the world shuddered. The fractured timeline knitted itself together. Kiyante's influence dissolved. Zarok's defeat aligned once more with the ancient past. The hero in the stars regained his rightful shape, and the legend of Sir Daniel Fortesque returned to the path it had always meant to follow, and restored by the one who had lived it twice.